G'day guys, my name's Ryan. This is my 1974 KE25 Toyota Corolla, and this video will be focusing on basically when I got the car, how it got to where it is now, and what the plan is for the future.
Hey Mickey, keep on road for later, yeah? Eyes low, blazing OG, you know me, the young trendsetter, force with me like Kenobi. Knowledge in abundance that can alter your mind. They say I speak to the youth, I tell them take your time. Cause why rush it? Everybody tripping over public perception. The way you better move in the best bets. Let friends get a job, just let the dead ends. Know what I mean? While stay dead.
Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is my 1974 KE25 Toyota Corolla. I've owned this car for about 8 or so years now. Originally it was my daily driver, then it turned into a project car, then it turned back into a daily car, and now it's turned back into a project car. When I got the car, it had already been converted from the factory 3K 4-speed manual to a 5K 5-speed manual and a 32-36 Weber. Apart from that, there weren't really any modifications other than the interior being hacked up for a sound system, unfortunately. And then I drove it around as it was for quite a while and I stripped a whole bunch of gears off the lay shaft after some spirited driving. Fortunately or unfortunately, when that had happened, I'd already collected a whole bunch of parts for a 4AG ZE conversion that I wanted to do. The 4AG ZE obviously out of the supercharged AW11 MR2, 7-rib block, nice strong engine, already had the turbo, and I had a Microtech as well that I planned to use. I also purchased a shortened VL turbo diff from a gentleman in a state. He'd planned to put it into his KE26 wagon, which never eventuated. I purchased it off him and had it shipped down here. For those of you who don't know, the VL turbo had the 28 spline Borg Warner as opposed to the standard 25 spline that was in the R31 and the normal VL Commodore. The shortened diff also kept the 4x110 stud pattern, which I wanted, and still had the drum brakes on the rear as well. So that was ready to go, straight swap, all the hard work had already been done. So I pulled the car off the road, I pulled the engine and gearbox out, I swapped the diff under the car, drive shaft, made up a crossmember for the gearbox. Just before putting the 4AG in, I also cleaned up the engine bay and sprayed it GMH satin black. Around the same time, Super Cheap Auto had a sale on, I think it was something like half price spray paint and then buy one get one free, something like that. I ended up purchasing, I don't even know, 15 cans of white spray paint for like $100, something like that, and I actually rattle canned the entire car. So the paint has actually held up remarkably well considering it's spent the last 5 or 6 years outside in the weather, not undercover. You know, really it looks pretty good, all things considered, apart from the fact that, you know, it's Kelvinator white, because it was just like the cheapest white paint that Super Cheap had. But, you know, if they want to sponsor me for some future DIY backyard paint jobs, let me know. So I got the engine in there, I was developing a bunch of parts, I designed a manifold for it, and then my current daily driver, my 180SX, developed a knock, and so I had to pull that off the road. At the time I didn't want to purchase a stock SR20, I wanted to build an engine for it, and I pretty much had the rest of the Corolla ready to go other than the engine. So fortunately, while I was doing all of that, there was a gentleman in Malaysia who'd actually posted up that he had a K-to-T hydraulic bell housing available. And so for those of you who don't know, they're actually relatively uncommon. I believe they came out in a Hi-Ace with a 5K and a T50 in Malaysia, but even then they're not that common. So I figured I'd purchase it anyway, you know, and put it on the shelf, something to have for the future, and it worked out. So I put the K-to-T bell housing on the T50 that was already in the car, kept the VL diff, and I put my factory 5K back in the car. And so that was all good, drove it around like that for quite a while. Until one day I was driving along and then I heard what sounded like another knock in the engine, or so I had thought. What had actually ended up happening was a nut had come loose from the carburetor filter, went inside, down the carb, down the intake, past the valves, made it into the cylinder, and then got squished from the piston against the cylinder head. So that was great. Luckily I'd actually managed to find another 5K engine, which was actually in the best condition that I'd ever seen a K engine, let alone a 5K. So I pulled the engine that was in the car out and put the new one in. Since then, that's how the car has stayed. So, what's the plan? What I'd like to do is turbocharge the engine that's in the car with the absolute bare minimum of changes that are possible. I'd like to put that on the dyno so I can get a direct comparison between a non-turbo and then the turbocharged engine. While I'm doing that, I'd like to also purpose build the other 5K engine that I've got specifically to suit turbocharging. Once I've turboed the factory engine and driven that for a little bit, I'd like to then pull that engine out, put the purpose-built one in, and then I can do a direct comparison between the turbo kit on the stock engine and the turbo kit on the purpose-built engine. So I've already got a whole bunch of ideas for components that I'd like to make, some of them necessary, most of them not necessary. I know that a lot of people will probably say, why even bother turbocharging a K engine at all? But because I want to, that's why. So there you go. And I think it'll actually do pretty well. Car only weighs 750 kilos. You know, and not every car needs to be 2JZ converted 1000 horsepower monster. There's actually a lot of fun to be had driving a really slow car fast as opposed to a really fast car fast. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this actually goes. So that's a bit... Look at this. Are you right? Is that where dogs go? What about you? So I think that just about covers everything for this video. As I said, I'm really excited to get stuck into it. I've got a whole bunch of ideas. I've also got the 180SX as well, which I'll be documenting the build on that too. A whole bunch of components already available on the website and a whole bunch more to come. Check out my Instagram, that's where I post most of my updates. If you like the video, subscribe. Feel free to let me know if there's things that you want to see covered in more depth in future videos or things that I haven't touched on yet. I've obviously got my own ideas, but I'm happy to cover anything that people might be interested in. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you soon.
Frustration and rage, suicide rates constantly raised, and I'm amazed. Graduate and maybe you can work the rest of your life. Education for some dreams and aspirations aside, y'all get the picture. These kids are falling victim to a system, raising money hungry in a food scarce prison. And when that prison is the building blocks for a whole generation, it takes someone great to instigate some separation, know what I'm saying? So stand alone, fucking stand tall, dog. You can always get up higher than you fall, dog. I know they sweating you, but you just gotta hold on. I ain't seen my sanity in fucking so long. Send my goals to a point of no return. All that in between shit you can live in your